Hi, I'm Rachel Olson, your host. Today I'm speaking with Jim DeBetta, the founder and president of DeBetta Enterprises, which specializes in coaching and consulting for inventors and consumer product startup companies. Jim is nationally known as a trusted coach and mentor to thousands of inventors and entrepreneurs and knows how to take new ideas from a sketch on a napkin to selling the final product to major retailers worldwide. His firm assists clients with product development, negotiating licensing deals, and raising money for new companies. They specialize in finding factories to produce products, creating pricing strategies, marketing and PR, and selling products to major retailers such as Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Costco, Bed Bath & Beyond, Michaels, Walgreens, Macy's, Home Shopping Network, and many others. And he's worked with Kevin Harrington from the ABC hit show Shark Tank as VP of Product Commercialization, where he's helped place products from the hit show into many top retailers in the US and Canada. So everybody, I'm dying to hear more of Jim's story.
I had a very successful sport optics company. We manufactured binoculars, spotting scopes, and all the way down to handheld magnifiers for the crafting industry, for people that go into Joann's and Michael's and stores like that to crochet and cross stitch, believe it or not. So kind of an extreme line of product on sides. But I decided that I had enough. I built a very successful business. I had gotten into all these major chains despite myself and our company. And, it was a great, fun ride. But I felt like I wanted to get out there and start teaching other people to do what I did and also what not to do. And avoid the mistakes. So kind of a new business was born for me, and I've been doing that ever since.
How did you get hooked up with Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank?
It's almost 10 years before Shark Tank was even on or even conceived. I knew Kevin loosely through some other people in the industry. As big as this consumer products world is, it almost seems incestuous. It seems like there's this small group of people that run around doing things in it. And his hired CEO at the time, Steve, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jim, Kevin's trying to build this new company called the Inventors Business Center at the time, IBC. And Kevin's the infomercial king. You know that. But Kevin doesn't necessarily spend his time selling to major chains. And, we know that you do. And we know that you understand the invention process and how people want to get help and how they need to be helped along during the process. Why don't you come down here and let's all sit down?" So I jumped on a plane, met with Kevin down in Clearwater, and we agreed to start working together. And so the business was born in that way. And that's when Kevin said, "Hey, Jim, I'm going to be on this show. I don't know how it's going to really do. It's called Shark Tank." "Yeah, Kevin, I know a lot of shows out there. Let's see what happens." And, of course, now it's a huge hit.
Right.
At the time, Kevin didn't realize how big it would become. And then I don't think he realized just how much in the way of leads and calls and emails he would get, and it was overwhelming. So there was a lot to do in helping him to organize that business. And he had a whole team of other people on the infomercial side to help develop that side of the business. And so I had my hands in a lot of parts of the business, from dealing with the infomercial clients to putting the products at retail and dealing with every aspect of the products that were on the show.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about retail right now. I mean, that's your specialty. For entrepreneurs that are listening to this and they're looking to go to retail and mass retail, what's one of the first things that they should do or prepare for? And how does that differ, or does it differ from like online stores and brick and mortar boutiques?
Yeah, well, first of all, unfortunately, I always tell people this business, like every business, takes money. A lot of people come to me and they feel like they can just get a product to market with no money or with very little money. And I tell them it's like opening up a restaurant or any other business. You need some cash. I mean, you need inventory. So when people come to me and say, "Jim, I've got something and I think it's good for Target or Walmart or Costco or whoever," I tell them, I say, "Listen, first of all, we've got to make sure that the product in its package looks great, because brick and mortar, despite the fact that online sales are booming, is still where it's at. I mean, people still walk into stores. Companies are still building stores, and new chains are coming out all the time. So while it may not seem as prevalent to everybody, having a product in a great package that tells a story is critical. So I always tell people that first off, if you want to get to mass, you've got to have a great presentation. That may also mean having point-of-purchase displays or tabletop displays, and having some kind of a message that allows somebody to walk by the product and in 3 seconds be interested to pick it up and then hopefully to buy it. And then from there, I tell people, listen, you've got to have a reliable factory. I mean, when you deal with a major chain that has 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 stores, the demands on you to produce are incredible. And if you do not deliver, you're done with that retailer. So they've got to be ready from a lot of different aspects, but the product itself has to be unique. It's got to really show its attributes, its benefits and features. It's got to be packaged tremendously. And then when it finally goes to market and it's on the shelves, then that's the test. Will people like it and buy it? And is it priced right? People also under or overprice their products often. And so I really like to look at what they're selling it at to make sure that it moves, because that's what the retailers want. They want movement, right? So,
right. It's like everybody, the women that I work with, it's like to get on, people feel like, oh my God, I got on the shelf or I got into that store. And I usually say, yeah, that's step one, and then it's like you have to get the people in the store to buy it and to move it. Otherwise, it's not a successful launch and they won't reorder. And so it's really, I think, and how you work with inventors. I work with a lot of inventors, but on more of the PR and marketing side. And there is so much just to get your product to market, and you really do a lot of that focus on the back end. And I agree with you. The money that's involved in the packaging, so much is branding and how things look. I have some clients who have redone their packaging 3 or 4 times because it didn't. Because when you are an inventor and you're marketing, you really have to clearly state what it is. And if it's a brand new type of invention, that awareness process takes so much longer in the public because they don't know what to compare it to. Do mass retail stores look for new inventions, or do they want something that's just like the other thing but maybe more updated? What have you found?
Well, I mean, you got 2 components here. One, if you're in a store, a buyer sets up a planogram, which is basically the store layout on paper. In order for them to take something out, right, it's got to be performing poorly or not up to numbers, so to speak. So if your product is similar but can drive more traffic, and I'll get into PR in a minute because this is a critical piece, then they may be willing to take out the poor performer and put yours in. Online, for example, look, it's open space. Now, nobody wants a cluttered website, but you have a little bit more leeway there because somebody could just scroll through 10, 15 somewhat similar products. Maybe they're buying on price, maybe just something about the way it looks catches their eye, or maybe the way the copy's written next to the product makes me say, oh yeah, that speaks to me. I want to get that. But when it's on a shelf, how it used to be, Rachel, is that the retailers would come to me and say, Jim, I need a marketing plan for your client. And I said, okay, well, good. They'll run some ads, or they'll call your name out and tell people to go shop at wherever. Today, the retailer really puts the onus on the inventor because of social media being so prevalent. If you're not out marketing your product to drive traffic to that retailer, you're not going to get that we talk about sales numbers in the store. And I always tell people, I'm like, the most visible wins. If you don't have a really robust social media platform, if you're not marketing your product to celebrities, to everyday people, getting the word and the voice out there and getting people to spread the message, they have nowhere to go to find out about it or learn about it. So those things really, really go hand in hand to me. And other than packaging in a physical way, I tell people, you've just got to outmarket other people. And yes, a buyer is certainly going to look for something that's new and improved, right? I mean, if they've been selling something for 5 years, they're looking for some newness. That's what I want as a customer, right?
Yeah.
It's like an iPhone. Every year, what's the new iPhone going to look like? People actually wait for that stuff. Other products, it's the same type of thing. People want newness, more benefits and features that make their lives just a little bit easier than it was last month or last year. That's what people love. So anything you can do to one-up the competition is definitely going to get a look-see by a buyer.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, and I agree too, like the social media and marketing, it's a lot on the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur is building a whole business, and now it's not just you got into retail and it's great, you still have to market it. And when the buyer is looking at a new type of a new product to bring on, and let's say they look at your social media and you're an inventor, so you haven't quite built that up yet. Is that going to be a major factor, like in a decision of them deciding to bring it into a retail store as a trial, or does it depend on how big the store is, or what? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think I think the short answer is let's think about this, as people ourselves. If I go online, and let's just say, I was interested in buying something new. Okay, I'm, all right, I have a home theater at home, and let's say I need to get a new component for my home theater. And I go online, and I don't know what to buy. There's a million brands and electronic companies out there, and Sony, Toshiba, JVC. There's all these brands. I don't know which one to pick. if I go online, I don't care if it's just Googling or I go to Facebook or I go to Instagram or wherever, and I see one brand has like a gazillion followers, there's a lot of great reviews, people are, buzzing about it, and then I go to the next brand and there's like just a couple hundred likes, there's no activity, there's no excitement, there's nothing new going on. If all things are somewhat equal, who are you going to choose? I'm going to go where the fun is, where people are talking about something, because there's got to be something there that they're talking about, right?
Right.
So that's how buyers are going to look at things. I don't think it's going to prevent anybody from getting placement. I mean, if you have a great product that's priced well, there's a need or a want for it, I don't think a buyer's going to say, well, nope, you have to have a minimum number of X or Y on any particular social media platform. But I got to tell you, look, as people, and they are just like us, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to look for excitement, because guess what? That platform that has 50,000 likes has a better shot at promoting that retailer
Right, exactly.
than the person it's 50 likes. So yeah, that all ties in. It's really important. But if you have a great product, believe me, you could build up the social media platform afterwards if you make that commitment. But the product's got to be cool itself too. So I've seen people, products that don't look so exciting do really well, and then people that have great products, they don't do well because there's no marketing behind it.
Right. I hear you. I totally see that. And I think a lot of people do too, and they're trying to determine, right, like what are the costs? Like when you say it's going to cost, in the beginning you were saying, it's going to cost so much more money. And I agree, like with working with Inventors, I work with both product and service-based businesses. So I've seen both. And, service, there's like very low overhead. And then a product, they do a manufacturing run. It doesn't turn out exactly the way that they hoped. Could you put an average on how much people would spend in the manufacturing to getting on the shelf, like from concept, from, as you said, like from the napkin sketch to getting it in mass retail? And I know different products cost different amounts, like molding and all of that type of stuff through manufacturing. But what do you see?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I get this one all the time, people, because they won't know before they even start working with me, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
I think that, yes, the complexity of the product makes a huge difference. If it's something that's got wires, that needs to be UL approved, or something that's got moving parts, and I'll get into more specifics in a minute, that's going to be more money. If it's something that's just solid, it could be a bottle, it could be, a pillow, something that doesn't have that kind of regulatory, mandatory looking at by government entities, that's going to be less. But I always tell people, listen, you're going to spend thousands. First of all, some people file for patents and trademarks, and that you don't always need them, but the cost of that is always thousands. You've got to get product design done. That's usually a few thousand on up, depending on the complexity of the product. Getting product packaging, you could find somebody to do a package for a few $100s, but more, it's probably like a couple $1,000s for top quality package design. And then of course you've got to get the product made, and factories don't make one of anything. They have minimum. So they'll say, all right, well, we can make, your pillow, and while the pillow is only $5 per pillow, we have a minimum of 1,000 pillows. And that's a very common thing.
Yeah. 500
pieces, 1,000 pieces. So the production side typically becomes your most expensive side, because you could spend all this money to get ready, and it could be $5,000 to $25,000 on the napkin to production stage, but it could cost you that or more depending on what your product costs. If you have a product that costs $500 and the factory makes 500 pieces, well, you do the math. But I always tell people it's usually, again, it could be as little as 10, 15, 20 grand on the low side, but it can certainly be 25, 50, or easily more if you have something that's very complex and has a lot of parts and components. And food products typically cost a bit too, because you can't just sell something that somebody ingests without having a lot of testing behind it and a lot of protocol behind that. So it varies, but it can get up there. But people can get to market less if they do it right and they don't make the mistakes, of course.
Right. And I think that it's helpful, like having this conversation and your insight and kind of laying it out there. So I guess I want to ask you, and I started to say this before and I ran into both of the questions is, so for this person who, spent 5 years, is on the shelf space, has gotten the shelf space, a prime location at Babies R Us, they're helping her with marketing. She put money behind it too. What would you say, like, if they decided, like at one particular store, and it doesn't have to be Babies R Us, but it just didn't work right for does that, do they still have the opportunity to go to Target and Walmart? How often can a product, what's the smartest approach, I guess, for an inventor, for mass retailer? Is it to be in all of them, or to do a deal with just one or two and give them, special rights to that product? What would you say would be a smart move strategically?
Yeah, I say you go after every possible customer you can. It's very rare today to have exclusivity. You tend to see that with celebrity brands. So, if some actor, actress, or athlete launches at Target or somewhere else, you'll see that there's usually some exclusivity time period. And it could be 6 months or a year, and then the product is allowed to be unleashed elsewhere. And obviously the reason the retailers want the exclusivity is because they're going to spend a lot of marketing dollars behind it, and they want to recoup their investment. And so it's a dollars and cents thing. But usually with an inventor product, if it's not a celebrity type thing, usually if this particular client of yours is going after Babies R Us, hey, why are you not going after Bye Bye Baby? Why are you not going after Target? Why are you not going after Walmart? Unless there's something that prevents them from doing that contractually, I don't know why in the world you wouldn't be going after everybody. I mean, when I shop for certain brands of anything, they're usually in all stores or many stores, not just one store. So unless it's a private label brand or there is some kind of really special sweetheart deal where they're compensating you for exclusivity by committing a really high number of pieces, you should be calling on everybody now. No, don't wait.
And what do you think, what's the timeline like to get into mass retail? Like if you're in the idea stage, is it even worth approaching that?
Look, I've approached buyers with a sell sheet with a concept. Now, I know the buyers, so I can say, hey, Rachel, look, I've known you 10 years. You're a buyer at wherever. Look, I'm working on this thing. What do you think? And you'd be like, Jim, this is cool and it's done. Let me know. Now, I can do that because I know you.
Right.
But if it's a buyer you don't know, they're going to say, yeah, great. Well, when you get a sample or it's done, let me know. So I think ideally, under perfect conditions, you'd have, a sample, retail ready product in its package to go. That being said, it costs money to get there. So I do a lot of pre-selling where somebody will have maybe a rough prototype, maybe something they've made themselves, or maybe they had, a prototyper do it or a factory do a short run. And, we put together a sell sheet where, a one pager that shows a rendition or a picture of the product, the benefits and features listed out. And I email that to buyers and I say, look, we've got this product. And even if the product may still be a few months away from being completed, these buyers take months to make decisions. So you have plenty of time to refine it and finish it by the time the buyer can actually do something about it. So, ideally in the package done stage, but you can certainly approach buyers and get your risk well before that to see if you can get any traction.
Right. And so like the benefit of going through somebody like you is that you already have those relationships established and you can kind of figure out what's working and what's not maybe prior. And also, have a foot in the door. But for somebody who's doing it on their own, do they, what would their process be to approach retail stores and buyers?
Look, everyone's busy. They get 1,000 calls a month. They get a gazillion emails. I mean, I get a lot of emails. I can barely keep up. I don't even want to know what a buyer's email count looks like. I mean, I do know because I have some friends that are buyers and they're like, Jim, I'm sorry, dude. This was from 3 weeks ago, and they don't even remember what it is when they email you. So it's crazy. But I think the process is, look, there's ways you can find out where buyers are these days that did not exist. I mean, I always tell people going to LinkedIn is really a good source to try to connect with buyers. Doesn't mean they'll accept your friend request and doesn't mean that they'll respond, but they sometimes do. And look, these buyers also troll sites. I mean, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat. They're looking for stuff. They're looking for trends. They have social media teams doing just that. But I think what you have to do is you have to try to get contact information. I think emailing is much more effective. Some people will argue that and say that getting on the phone works best. But I know all the buyers I know, they don't pick up their phones, or they have an assistant that will pick up the phone, or somebody else. And I just don't think you're going to get a lot of traction that way. I think when you email somebody something with exciting information, with a sell sheet, with a link to your social media pages or your website, hey, I can look at that at my leisure. I can look at that at midnight. I can look at it while I'm having a cup of coffee in the morning if I'm a buyer, or at lunch. And I can. There's no pressure, so it's less for the buyer to have to deal with the inventor calling up and say, "Hey, it's Jim DeBetta. I got something. I want you to take a look at it. You have 10 minutes free time." I mean,
right?
It just doesn't work. Those pitches don't work anymore. So, Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, I was telling people it's like it's the same thing with PR. It's more casual and it's also more, people are on 24/7 and you want to be able to see what somebody's doing. And I'd imagine like for an actual product, you'd want to, even having a conversation, you could say how great it is. People want to see it, when it's a product, a physical product. So interesting. Okay, so I want to move on. I want to talk about, thanks for sharing all that, like retails. It's very interesting. I guess one last question, and then I want to move on to kind of like the infomercial, home shopping network, QVC, HSN, all that stuff is, for inventors who only have like one or two products in their product line, is it smarter to partner with other smaller brands and approach the mass retail outlets?
Yeah, it's mixed. Granted, it can definitely be challenging for a buyer to set up a new vendor for one thing, especially if it's an unproven thing, right? It's a lot of paperwork. It's just, all the back and forth, and the buyer just assume that deal with it many times. If the product's really cool and it's a one-off, they'll do it. I mean, it's just depending on how exciting it is. But yeah, people have done that. They've pooled, like the as seen on TV is a perfect example. You go into any chain store and there's huge sections of as seen on TV products. That's pooled together. Just like, Mom Invented, like Tamara Monosoff, who I know.
Right.
I mean, you got those types of venues going on, and they can definitely be enticing to a buyer. There's no question that might be a little bit more intriguing. But remember, you've got the internet today, and you can have a one product company and sell it like crazy on the internet. Whereas 10, 15, 20 years ago, when when the business was not internet, that selling one products was tough. But then again, there are catalogers that love selling onesies, and catalogs are still big deals today. And then of course, as you segue into the discussion about TV shopping, and infomercials, that's one product stuff often. So There's definitely ways, and retailers will take a one product thing. But yeah, if you have a line, it definitely makes it a little bit easier for the buyer to just not have to go through the headache of saying, I don't want to set up, just for this one thing that we don't know anything about.
Right. Okay. You've had, it sounds like, a lot of experience in the infomercial world. And so what can you share with us that would maybe help that?
Yeah, first of all, TV shopping and infomercials, a lot of people mistake the two. They're not the same.
Okay.
I mean, selling a product to HSN or QVC is no different than selling something to Target or Walmart. They're outlets to resell products. So when I approach a buyer at Target, my approach is really, in essence, the same as it is approaching HSN, for example. There's buyers for every category. You send them information, a sample, a sell sheet, pricing. The buyers review it, and if they like it, they set you up as a vendor. So that process is exactly the same. The difference is you're selling something on TV, so you have to just get airtime. And if sometimes they don't want to put you on the air because they don't think it's going to do enough, they'll put you up on their website. So that's akin to being on air is being on the shelves, and being online is still being online. So that process is the same. How they choose products is a little differently. Obviously, if it's on air, it's got to be demonstrable. It's got to be something that's fun, that's exciting, that shows well on TV, versus something that's in a retail store. It doesn't have to always be exciting. Infomercials are typically paid opportunities. And by the way, to dispel another quick rumor that you hear a lot in TV shopping like HSN and ABC, you don't pay to be on. Again, it's just like any other retailer. They buy your product, they issue a purchase order, they pay you when for the product. So that's just want everyone to know. That's important. With an infomercial, you pay usually. Now there are some huge infomercial houses we all know, All Star Marketing, that did the Snuggie. If they really see huge opportunity in it, they will pay to test the product. So they, usually you'd have the product done or near done. They'll even go as far as paying for some of the manufacturing. They'll pay for the airtime to run the infomercial spot. They will of course pay to to script and actually make the infomercial. Now that's not common.
Okay.
It's more common. Infomercial companies will say, look, there's hey, we'll put your product on TV, but there's a cost to doing so, and they're going to either charge you some or even all of the cost to get a product tested on TV. And then if it does well, this is where it changes real quick. They can either decide to invest in the product and just give you a royalty of a few percent. And they'll say, hey, we're going to pay for everything from here on out, and we're going to throw you like 3 or 4 or 5% as a royalty on sales. Or they may just say, hey, we want you to pay part of what it costs for the airtime. And there's all different types of deals made.
Okay.
But that infomercial world is often about you paying to test, or paying some or all, or sometimes none of what it costs to get the product out on TV.
Okay, got it. In a package saying we're gonna, script it, we'll get the airtime, we'll basically take care of it, and that's like a $25,000 fee or whatever. What is
Yeah,
that? Is that
yeah, that's fair. I mean, you're not going to get it done for a few thousand. I'll tell you right now. I mean, the cost to script a commercial, to shoot it, I mean, they could be live on location. They could be in the studio. They've got to edit that thing. They've got to have voiceovers, people to talk about the product. There's music involved. Then you obviously got to buy airtime, right? When you advertise on TV, you got to pay to be on TV for that space. So, yeah, 15, 20 grand, normal. Could it be 50 or more? Easily. It depends on how long the infomercial is, how involved it is. If you have a celebrity endorse it, you're going to, and a lot of times the infomercial companies will say, hey, we have somebody that may be able to come on air and endorse it, but you're going to pay that personality, right, a fee to do it, and they want a piece. So the infomercial world is not for the faint of heart. It's expensive. It can definitely be very risky. So I always tell people, listen, sometimes there's better ways to spend 20 grand. You could have a great marketing campaign or PR campaign with 20 grand all day long. But some products are good for infomercials, and sometimes it's worth taking the risk. But I always tell people it's like Vegas. If you can go to Vegas and you've got money to burn and you leave there and it hasn't hurt you financially, like you're not going to lose your house, then you can afford to do it. But if you can't afford to do it, you probably shouldn't be doing it, because it's the success rate in the infomercial business is a few percent. I mean, it's small. So it's very risky. And I always tell people that there's a much higher percentage of success in marketing your own products in other ways over time, with that kind of money. But again, it all depends on the product, the person, the situation. It can vary.
I mean, when you look at like Snuggies and you look at some of these infomercial products that have like taken off, I mean, it's really hard to predict who's going to be a winner,
Look, we all knew what was going to be the winner, right? As they say, but it is, and there's only usually one or two or three hits a year, if that really make a lot of money. So, and think about the thousands of infomercials that get tested, that get through that process and lose money. So these infomercial houses need that multi-million-dollar win to justify the cost of all the losers that they have along the way.
Okay, let me ask you something too. And I don't even know if you know the answer to this, but let's say you pay for your infomercial, it goes on, it gets an okay response, maybe nothing too much happens from it. Do you own the rights to that infomercial, you as the inventor? Can you put it on social media? Can you use it as an ad campaign on your own? Do you know anything about that, or is that something that's negotiated in the contract?
Yeah. Right. Well, I know a lot about that. Working with Kevin, I was involved in a lot of those deals, and it depends. It usually comes down to this: if they're paying, they may have a lot more ownership. If you're paying the bill, then you have more rights. So, I think we'll just leave it at that.
So for those, when you say it has to be demonstrable, you have to be able to demonstrate the product, it has to be fun and all of those things. What types of products have you seen that do really well?
Well, I mean, there are certain obvious categories. Fitness is huge, right? Because exercise machines or anything that's fitness, because they have people up there and they're using the product or the machines, and they're really fit and thin and everything else. So doesn't that sell better than just seeing a photo of a machine? I mean, that gets you excited. Clothing does well, obviously. Women models wearing clothing, different styles and types of a particular clothing line. That's better than seeing a still picture of a dress. A lot of things do well. I mean, consumer electronics, anytime that they could point out anything. But, I mean, anything can work as long as you can make it exciting and sellable on TV. I mean, you could have arts and crafts stuff. You can have, like I said, clothing, electronics, cookware products are great because, you see people putting physical things on there. I mean, anything, and most anything that can be made exciting can sell.
Okay, so I think I remember on Shark Tank, because I know that world from a different angle, but Lori Grenier was doing a bunch of, is it QVC or, all of these types of shows. And she would do deals with maybe some mom invented products. And then they learned afterwards that QVC really doesn't do a lot of baby and kid products, or they don't do really kid stuff at all. So do you have any idea, insight into I mean, obviously they probably don't because it didn't sell well, but I'm like in shock being in the, for me to be in mom invented, baby and kid invented products when I started down this path when my first daughter was born in 2007, and the market has exploded. Like, you used to be able to get one cute blanket or one type of stroller, and it was like the year of the bugaboo, like the high-end stroller. And now there's like a ton of them, and they twirl and they spin and they, all of these things. And so I guess I'm always shocked that there is not an online shopping network for, for moms that are like sitting at home when they have babies and they want to see how all of this stuff works.
Right. Well, the short answer, and this is exactly why the HSNs and QVCs don't get into that market, and they'll tell you, is that they consider their customer deemed, as a selfish, middle-aged housewife or woman who's buying for herself. So if that's your customer, and you're buying fitness, you're buying vitamins, and you're buying cookware, and you're buying shoes, and you're buying whatever, that's their customer. It's not the mom. It's not to say that moms don't go on there and and I know that they've dabbled and they have some stuff online. They do that.
Yeah.
But you're right. You think, why would not somebody come along, and probably because it costs a fortune to go on air, get a channel, and market baby products. But I agree. It would seem like because it's a woman-driven business that there's going to be moms in there. But
okay, so I know that we have just a few minutes left. So how do you know if your product would be considered a product to license?
Well, I mean, you don't. I think, a lot of people come to me without really understanding licensing, and they say, Jim, I want to license my product. And then I ask them what licensing is, and they really don't know what it is. So it's a term that gets thrown around. But really quickly to explain to people, I mean, licensing is when you basically lease your intellectual property rights, like your patents, to a company. So I always use like Black & Decker tools as a good example. So if you've invented a tool and you don't feel like you want to go out on your own and sell it, you go to Black & Decker and say, hey, look, I've got a patent or patent pending on this tool. And I would just assume, because you're Black & Decker, you're in all these stores, you have a big brand, marketing, I would just assume you take it over and then just give me, a few percentage points on the net sale. It's hard to say. I think there is no specific criteria. I think like a product that goes into retail, it's got to either solve a problem, or it's got to be a desirable product for people. It's got to fill a void in somebody's line that they don't already have. So, if it's a Black & Decker, if they don't have this particular tool and the people over there think that it could fit in well with their existing product lines, or it could be a new product launch, they may consider licensing it. But again, licensing is like the infomercial world. It's a very, very low success rate world, and people think I'll just license my product. I don't have to spend money, manufacturing and doing all this and that. I'll just go license it. But when they find out that, 9 out of 10 times they don't get a deal, they turn around and start trying to do it on their own. I often tell people, Rachel, that they're better off developing the product and getting some traction on their own, and then it entices better potential licensing deals, because now you mitigate the risk for the company, the licensee, to say, hey, well, we don't have to take a chance on your tool. Well, you're already selling it well. Now we want to take it over, and then you make more money on the deal and you could have better leverage in the deal. Right,
and you're a proven entity and you have some traction, so that totally makes sense. I know I hear that all the time too. I think that a lot of the women that I work with, they get to year 2 or 3 and they've gone through and they realize that it is much tougher to bring a product to market than they thought. The fun part was the designing it and the creating it and maybe getting a website, and then it's time to, hustle and sell and market, and it's just not as appealing. But yet a lot of them have actually invented and have, patents on a special, technology for a baby product or kid product. And so, they think it's going to be easy. And I still haven't met anyone really who has successfully licensed it. So, it's interesting. You touched upon my next question, which is how realistic is it that something like that would happen? And I think by you comparing it to the infomercial and, it's a small percentage of wins.
It's tough, and look, I have on my website, for example, I have a downloadable 2-hour course that talks about how to license a product, and it teaches everybody all the steps, and there's downloads for sample terminology and licensing contracts. Look, it helps if you can really have the wherewithal and not afraid of hearing no, like any salesperson is going to hear. Look, you can do it. You just got to increase your odds, and I think that's what happens. People, they make a few phone calls, they don't really know what they're doing, and they go, oh, I can't license. And I think that's part of why the rate is so low, because people just don't have the right information or just don't know the steps to doing it. So I think if people get more informed, they increase the odds.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I saw that course on there and I thought, oh, that was the first time I've seen something like that that looked very like well laid out and easy to follow. So if you're thinking about licensing, why don't we talk a little bit about what you do for clients, Jim?
Good. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Well, I mean, as we're discovering through here, it's a stem to stern thing for me. People come to me just starting out. They say, Jim, last night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had an idea for a product. And I help people basically through project management, the whole process. So obviously I'm not a design engineer. I'm not a patent attorney. There are certain things I know a lot about, but I'm not that person. And so what I do is I have a team of people, a number of people deep in every area and phase of product development. And I connect my clients with those people. I stay involved in the conversations because I have some obviously added value in there. And I manage the effort from the ideation to what they say is commercialization. So I've got a lot of factory contacts. I know all the right people for product design, for package design, for web design, people like you for PR. And I am involved in that, but I make sure that everything runs smoothly, everything gets accomplished quicker and easier and for less money along the way because I have those relationships that are trustworthy. And then, of course, people come to me and they want me to sell their product to the stores for them. And I can take over the entire sales process, do a little of the sales process. Obviously, that's what everybody wants at the end of the day. I do advise people on licensing. Some people just call me and they want to take an hour or two of my time and pick my brain. They're at a different stage or whatever stage they're at. And they say, Jim, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I have questions. I'm online, but there's just so much information. I don't know what to do with it all. So everything from hourly to monthly to, yearly. I mean, I handle all things in all ways. My website, which is my name, jimdebetta.com, lists out, much of what I do. But, look, I try to help people in customized ways all the time because it seems like that's how things are today.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I get that feeling from you and from your site. And I'll definitely include your website on the show notes page for this interview. So people can figure out how to connect with you best. Would it be just on your website? Do you want to share an email or Twitter or?
Well, from my website, they'll get me from all the social media. Can't hide anymore. You know that. So
but isn't that amazing? I think it is. I mean, I feel like excited, like talking to you and hearing all of this, some of the stuff I knew, some of it I didn't. And I think that it's, you're right. There is a lot of information out there, but just to be able to distill it down in one conversation and say like, here are your options. Here's kind of what works. Here's somebody that can help you along that process. And you have a ton of experience having, built your own business to $50 million and helping, run Kevin Harrington's company and bringing products to market and books. And you've spoken at a lot of places. I didn't even get into all of that. But you're big in the inventor industry. And so it's so great to have you on. And I appreciate all your knowledge, Jim, and taking the time to share it with everybody today.